Good afternoon from Hopalong Hollow. This is Jerry, and it is so good to be back outside again, looking out on the gardens and the lawn and the trees that are starting to bud out. Ah, what a glorious day it is. So the weather has really warmed up, enough so that I was able to bring all the little seedlings from the inside mini greenhouse to the outside mini greenhouse where they can get hardened off. In other words, acclimated more to the outside temperature. And then a lot of new ones I have also started in here. So some of these I just put in the seeds just the other day. Some of them are growing quite nicely. But most of all, you want to look out on your plot, and you will see that winter has usually left quite a mess for you. At least it does around here. No matter how many gardens you have, no matter how large or small they are, you've got to go do your cleanup. And you can see that in this potager, there's a lot that has to be done. Although almost everything you see is actually flowers or vegetables. There's actually arugula and chives and sage and mints that are growing in here, have been all winter long. But there's still a lot of things to do in here. We've got to get the ground ready to plant some seeds. And so today we're going to do a lot of cleanup. We're going to do some weeding. And we're going to plant some seeds directly into the ground. Because a lot of the seeds that you have, this is when you want to start putting them in. So whether your garden is just a tiny little thing like that, or even just tubs, it's time to get out there and start planting things. Now you don't need 40 acres or even 1 acre or even a tiny little plot of land to grow a garden, because you can grow a garden in a windowsill or a patio or a balcony or a porch. And you can do that by using beautiful containers that come in every size you can imagine. You can plant fruit trees, strawberries, flowers, vegetables, lettuces, herbs, everything that you can plant in a plot on the ground, you can also plant in containers. Herbs are especially easy to grow in containers, and in this case we've got some cilantro and some parsley. They like really rich soil. They will tolerate the shade, and you just follow the directions on the back of the packet. It's just pretty easy to have your own herb garden right in your kitchen window. One of my favorite subjects as a gardener is talking about seeds. And if you're a gardener that plants from seeds, I'm sure you'll agree with me and that you get pretty enthusiastic about seeds yourself. So enthusiastic, in fact, that you have more seeds than you will ever know what to do with. If we planted all those seeds, that could be a wonderful thing, but so often we find ourselves at the end of the season and it's too late to put something in the ground, and you might look through your seed packets and find seeds that you've had for 5 years, and you have no idea whether they're even viable anymore. I mean, some of these packets of seeds have been around far too long, and I really don't have any idea whether they'll germinate or not. So I have begun to exercise a little more restraint, although I know it doesn't look like it when you see these seeds on this table. But I really have exercised restraint in being a little more choosy about what I put in the garden. So your herbs and vegetables, concentrate on things that you're actually going to use. I've been guilty in the past of planting things that I let it just go to waste in the garden because I actually never go in there and harvest it. So I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to plant things that we really will eat. For example, we eat a lot of lettuces, so I wanted to choose a lot of salads, that is. So I wanted to choose a lot of different varieties of lettuces, cilantros, salad makings, such as these lovely, lovely little radishes, which can also be used for stir-fry. And I heard these icicle radishes are very tender and sweet. I'm planting beets because I love pickled beets, and last year I planted them too late, and I just didn't have a good showing on my beets at all. So I'm getting them in at the right time this year. We're doing a lot of spinaches, a lot of kales, a lot of chard. I like to sow the melons and the squashes in the trays first and let them get a good start and then put them into the garden. For some reason, when I direct sow these, I don't have any luck with them. But the seeds are large, as you can see. I've got these going. Uh-oh, the Peabody boys are on the loose, as you can hear. With 4 of them, it gets really noisy around here. But these are doing very well in the trays. And in about 2 weeks, I'll be able to put them directly into the garden. Now let's talk about what we really love, and that's flowers. Now, direct sowing flowers, there are some that do so much better if you just sow them directly into the garden. One of my favorites, I talk about it all the time, is Evening Primrose Pink. They also come in yellow. You plant this little thing one time in your garden, and you will have them forever. I will show you later on in the video. I will walk around the yard and I will show you all the free plants that I have from this evening primrose. It's a beautiful, delicate flower that blooms twice in the season. Another direct sower would be the Dame's Rocket. Pincushion flowers are also very easy to grow direct sown, but you can also put these in trays. And sometimes you might want to put things in trays just so that you know what those seedlings are going to look like when they come up. So do a little bit of half and half. Put half of these in your trays, put half of them in your garden. See what works best for you. I do that all the time. You really need to experiment sometimes. Cosmos, definitely direct sowing. Sunflowers can go either way, but since this is such a beautiful and spectacular looking sunflower, I think I'm going to put these in some trays and then put them in the gardens that I want. Also, I've tried these in trays, and this is called Billy Buttons or Craspedia, and these are going to be wonderful for dried flowers arrangements. Lots and lots of cosmos that come in both dwarf size, and some of them grow 8 feet tall, so keep an eye on the size that you're buying, because you may not want an 8-foot plant if you're putting it in a very small garden, unless you're putting it way in the back. Snapdragons also direct sow. I tried these last year in trays. It just simply did not work for me. They did okay in the trays, but when I transplanted them into the garden, almost all of them died. So we're not going to do that this year. Hollyhocks, I like to do them in trays and directly sown. This is a beard tongue, but it's actually a penstemon, and I think I'm going to plant these in trays as well. Foxglove, definitely in trays and then transplant into the garden. Is there something that you really, really love and you don't want to take any chances at all that it doesn't grow? Then do this. Buy your seed in bulk. Don't take any chances that those plants that you want so badly are not going to grow. This is a wonderful, huge package of seed from Everwild Farms, my favorite seed company, because I love these seed packets because of the way they are made. They last. The seeds are guaranteed to be fresh 3 times longer than plastic or paper packaging, and other things that you can buy in bulk from other companies. This is Eden Brothers. I definitely want straw flowers this year because I want to be able to have those dried flowers to make the flower arrangements over the winter. So Eden Brothers sells in bulk. Let's see. This is a packet of poppy seed. Poppy seed is also something you should direct sow. Get it in either in the fall or early spring. Right now, you want your poppy seed in. This is such a tiny seed, you just sort of toss it right on top of the surface of your soil. What else? Okay, we got a lot of those. Another California poppies, direct sow California poppies, and direct sow Shirley poppies, also known as American Legion poppies. And Snapdragons, once again, I'm not taking any chances on my snapdragons. I've already got them sprinkled in so many gardens. I'm going to walk around and show you where I've got them growing, and you can see what the tiny little seedling looks like. This is an ounce of seed from Eden Brothers. And like I said, I'm not taking any chances on my snapdragons this year because last year they were not successful. And I just put them in trays last year. It didn't work out for me. And then we've got another variety of all sorts of things. This I'm already thrilled with. This is a bulk pack of wildflower seed, and they're all perennials. There are 15 species of perennial wildflower seed in this 1 pound packet from Eden Brothers. And just a few of the plants in here are lupin, flax, coreopsis, Shasta Davy, liatris, dianthus, yarrow, Mexican hat coneflower, and many, many others. And so I've got some of this that I sprinkled. It's already growing on one of the slopes. And another thing I recommend that you buy in bulk are the zinnias. Zinnias are so great. Oh dear, sorry. Zinnias are just so great in any garden, and they're so trustworthy. I've done a lot of videos talking about zinnias. So here in the basket garden, about 2 weeks ago, I sprinkled seed. Now I had to work in between the perennials that are already growing in this garden, and this is a garden that I show you every year. It always looks a little bit different, but because I have a lot of perennials that are actually growing in here, I needed to work around those. So I cleared the ground, sprinkled the seed. Most of the seed is so tiny, it's just something you sprinkle right on the surface. I know what I have in here because I left myself a note right there. So the snapdragon, larkspur, pincushion flower, pink primrose, cosmos, and large poppies are all seeded in this garden. And if you look very carefully, you can see those tiny, tiny seedlings are all coming up. So a couple weeks of sunshine and rain. Don't give up on your seedlings. They will come up. This is not going to be a very exciting segment because we're going to talk about, well, weeds for one thing. But this is something that I don't see addressed very often in garden videos, and that's what do you do with an existing garden that already has things growing in it. It's got roses and bulbs perhaps, it's got some perennials, lots of perennials, but you've also got a lot of weeds coming up, and you want to add more to this garden, and you cannot go ahead and kill all these weeds simply by laying cardboard all over the entire surface because you're going to destroy the growth of your perennials. So what do you do with a mess like this? Thing you can do with this section, hate to say it, you've got to get in here and clean it up by hand. So I have to dig all these weeds out one by one, put them in my big huge bucket here, and then I have a nice new area where I can put in some seeds. I can maybe put in some bedding plants. I can start anew and afresh in this garden without disturbing all my perennials that are already going to be growing in here. So choose a day when you're going to have the entire day to get busy and really do a good job in your garden. In early spring is the best time to do this because the weeds are just now emerging and you can get them while they're still young. And then in that empty ground that you are left with, you can put the compost on top of that to prevent any further germination of the weed seed. So this is a really good way to get in here and really get to know your garden down on a level of intimacy with your garden. Because here I am down here and I'm digging out these weeds and I'm finding beautiful little violets. I've just found out here's a beautiful phlox that's going to come up. This is going to end up being 3 or 4 feet tall. I've got little violets, and then also you've got these, you see, the chickweeds. Don't give them a chance to drop that seed. It's already producing flowers and that turns into seed, and then you'll have chickweed all over your garden. So let's just think about all the other gardeners that are out there right this minute digging out their weeds, and we'll have a sense of camaraderie about it as we do this chore, which is just one of the necessary parts of creating a beautiful garden. For sure you want to be very thorough, and if you're using a fork like this and you're just pulling them out like so, make sure you remove them, root and all, because if you even leave a little bit, you're going to end up with a new, that little thing can still take root and grow into a nice big weed. I've been asked, and by the way, these are my husband's boots. My feet aren't really this big, but people ask, how do I keep weeds out of my garden? Well, you can't keep weeds out of your garden completely. You can minimize the weeds, but weeds are like anything else. I mean, they want to grow too. They're just doing what they're supposed to do. They're reproducing, and so, I mean, you can't hate weeds too much. I mean, I do wish they'd grow somewhere besides our beautiful gardens, but also a weed is sort of a matter of taste, whether or not you think it's a weed. Now, if you run into an area in your garden where you've got a lot of your perennials coming up or little seedlings from flowers that you had planted, it's important to know, and seasoned gardeners would already know this, but if you're a beginner gardener, you may not know what the seedlings or the leaves are supposed to look like. And so it's important to familiarize yourself with what a weed is and what is one of the plants that you deliberately put in. And because I know these weeds in this garden pretty well, and I know my plants, I am aware of the fact that this is a rutabaga here, and I know what the weeds look like. So you don't want to be digging up your prize plants by accident. So make sure that you know what you're doing if you get into an area where you really have a lot of flowers, potential flowers growing up. Okay. It took me about an entire day to weed the slope, and then it started to rain, and then it rained for 3 days, and I didn't get back out here until today, where the sun is shining and it's absolutely glorious. My husband's out there mowing the lawn already, and we've got a lot of water coming down the dry creek. That's what it's for. And look, all the daffodils are blooming here. Isn't that amazing here in the little colonial garden? Just after a few days, it's just tremendous. But once you've got those weeds taken care of, you want to get out there as soon as possible, and you want to cover that ground because you have disturbed the little weed seeds that may have been buried, and you might have brought them to the surface. You don't want them to germinate, and then you'll be back to weeding again right away. So what we want to do is we want to cover with compost. I like to go as much as possible, 3 to 4 inches deep if I have enough, but I don't know that I'll have enough to cover my slope here because I've been using this up like crazy. Wow. What a difference. So the perennials and the bulbs and all the other wonderful things can still come through. That was well worth it. Now I can plant in between all these. I can throw a lot of seed in here. I can use some bedding plants if I want. But basically, this is going to be full of cottage flowers, like most of the gardens, and a few perennials. In fact, I think I'm going to need an awful lot of perennials to fill in a lot of these empty spaces here. So let's go look at the seeds that we can plant today. You know, that's a job well done. Really enjoyed it, actually. These are the flowers that I've chosen to put on the bottom half of the slope. I've chosen them according to color. The red Shirley poppies right there is just to get a contrast, because I usually like these cool colored flowers. And I've also chosen them according to height. First thing I'm planting right here in the corner on the very bottom of the hill is the showy evening primrose. This is a plant that reseeds prolifically. I've talked about it so many times. They say that it can become invasive in your garden, but it's such a pretty and delicate little plant. It doesn't really do any damage to your plants. It simply enhances them, actually. It makes them look even better than ever. And it blooms twice a year with this papery, thin, almost poppy-like bloom. Very, very pretty. It says to plant it 1 inch deep, but all I do with these, the seeds are so very, very tiny that I simply sprinkle them right on top of the soil. The soil's already loose. The compost is damp, and it's supposed to rain tonight, so that's even better. Okay, you can see how tiny they are. I'm just going to take them and I'm just going to sprinkle them right on the top of the soil in this first couple feet at the bottom. I'll probably disperse these in several different sections of the garden because I actually do want them everywhere. It's really pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. I'm simply going to work my way up the hill according to height and color and bloom time. And those are all things that you'll find out on your seed packet. So the next thing I put in will probably be the little snapdragons, because these snapdragons will be probably 24 inches tall or so. And then the 30-inch tall cosmos. So once again, sprinkle your little seeds in your hand, grab them with your other fingers like a pinch of salt, and then you're just going to sprinkle them on the top of your soil throughout your garden, or just toss them in. The cosmos seed, as you can see, is a little bit larger, well, quite a bit larger, and this is something you might want to cover a little bit with some peat or some sand after you sprinkle it on the surface, because this is be easily visible for a wild bird to come in and snatch out of the ground. So after I sprinkle these on the ground, I'm going to cover them with some peat. If these two bloomed at the same time, I think it would be a fantastic color combination. Unfortunately, I don't think they bloom at the same time. Nevertheless, one of them is 32 inches tall, and the other one gets to be about 24 inches tall. So I'm going to plant them close to each other anyway, and see what happens. That's part of the fun of gardening. You just experiment, and sometimes you come up with a real winner. Today's theme for tea and table is the beloved bird. And since it's early spring and all the little songbirds are returning to the area, finding mates, looking for birdhouses, building nests, thought it was a perfect opportunity to use these dishes because they're so cheerful, beautiful, and they just make you think of birdsong. It was cool this afternoon and began to rain, and I thought, what a perfect time for a split pea soup. It's really easy to make, it's hearty, it's great for a family. It's great for your family just to get together and build this soup in either a pot or a crock pot. And a lot of us right now have this sort of thing on hand, such as dried peas and dried beans. So this is really a tasty and delicious soup to try with our tea and our cheese and chive biscuits. Because we wanted to start using those herbs in the recipes, we were able to use chives, which were in the garden. They've been growing for about a month now. And then also in the soup, we were able to use fresh sage and basil, which we've also had growing in the garden for about a month. Today's tea is called Malachi McCormick's Decent Tea. It's made with Assam and cumin. Assam is an Indian tea with a malt-like flavor, and cumin is a very black, strong tea. Malachi McCormick's rule of the decent cup is to bring the fresh tap water to a rolling boil, use a little to scald your teapot in cups, and discard. We already knew that. Put about 1 teaspoon of tea per person in the pot, add the boiling water, put on the lid, and cozy. We don't have a cozy. Let the tea infuse for 5 minutes. More gives a bitter tea from the tannin. Serve unadulterated or with milk sugar for a decent cup. And remember, good tea, fresh boiling water, and 5 minutes infusion. And that's from A Decent Cup of Tea by Malachi McCormick. This tea was a gift from my daughter-in-law, so I don't really know where it came from, but let's give it a try. Today's beautiful teapot is an artisan pottery hand-thrown pot, which we acquired quite a few years ago. What I appreciate most about this pot is the lid, because the lid is much, much taller than most teapot lids, preventing it from falling out as you're pouring the tea, and you don't have to keep your thumb on it like that. It is just in there so nicely and deeply that that is not a problem at all. So we're going to just use a very simple little diffuser. And take Mr. McCormick's advice and steep this for 5 minutes, which we always do anyway. I think this could be a very strong tea. Today's beautiful dinnerware is covered in birds. We've had this dinnerware for about 10 years or so. And the reason I wanted it is because it's so cheerful. I love the bright colors on it. It's actually meant as winter wear, but I like it just as much in the spring and summer because it's got all the beautiful little songbirds on it. This is made by Lennox, and the artist who created all the images is Catherine McClung. I just think this is wonderful, wonderful dinnerware. So each piece has a different bird on it. Here we have a little goldfinch. Inside the bowls, we have a little nuthatch. It's just really cheerful and pleasant graphics. Let's see. We have cardinals, chickadees, finches, and nuthatches, and cardinals. Soup is just such a comfort food. Now, if you don't have any ham on hand, you can replace the ham with corned beef or just a ham bone. You could also add celery to this. I just didn't have any. So we were just using what we had. Often relegated to wintertime. But on a cool, rainy spring day, I think soup and biscuits are pretty comforting. And of course, our tea. Soup is also a great meal to teach your children how to make because it's such a simple thing to do and so healthy. What a great meal to have after you've been weeding or working in the garden all day long. If you put the pot of soup on in the morning, it's going to be so delicious. It's going to be good for quite a few days. And another great thing is you can teach your children a little bit about baking by baking some simple biscuits like these. And like I always say, if I can bake it, anybody can, because I am not the greatest cook in the world. But lately I've really been enjoying cooking. I don't know why, but ever since I made those scones, I've been having a good time cooking. So maybe I have rediscovered the joy of cooking in my old age. So the tea has a really bold and strong flavor. In fact, it's one of the few teas that I would say I wouldn't want to add any sweetener or milk or anything to it and drink it, as Mr. Malachi says, unadulterated, just straight tea. So all our little invited guests here on the table, I think they're here for the biscuits. We have English robins and thrushes and bluebirds and finches and downy red-headed woodpeckers and, snowy owl. I think that's a horned owl and a little barn owl and a red robin. Despite whatever human beings are up to, little birds go on with their life, building their nests, laying their eggs, singing their songs, and just being one of God's most delightful little creatures. So let's take joy in the springtime birds at this time of year. And while you're looking for things to do with your time, perhaps you're homeschooling your children right now for the next couple of weeks. What a great study you would have doing birds. This is called Common Birds and Their Songs. So these are the songbirds that you might have in your neighborhood, and along with it comes a CD so that you can learn to recognize and identify birds by the songs that they're singing. This book is called Bird. Discover the world of a bird in close-up, its natural history, behavior, courtship, habits, and secret life. And this has such fantastic photographs, so much information. Look at all the different birds' nests that you can learn about. I mean, you could use this also as an art study book. Drawing nests, drawing feathers, beaks, bills. This is a really, really good study book. And any number of big hardback coffee table books about birds would be available to you with all kinds of information. I mean, if you studied these books for a couple weeks, you would be a bird expert in no time. So, see what you can do and what you can come up with. I wish you all well, and we'll see you next time in Hopalong Hollow. Bye.